Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Grants and Contracts. I'm so excited to see y'all today. My name is Lainey. I'm your co host.
And I'm Abraham, your other co host. So good to see all of you here on the Grants and Government Contracting podcast here. Lainey, I know you've been doing many different things the last few weeks and a lot of
Yes.
things going on during the summer. So, what's new with you?
Yeah, just work has been crazy as always. But I think it's funny people talk about grant season. I think grant season is all year round, minus December, because, been working on grants for clients, really excited about that. And excited about the strategies we've been coming up for because fall is grant heavy. So knowing, some of those are going to open and really excited. And I'm have some exciting changes coming up. So I will be sharing those in, later in our podcasting journey. So y'all have to come back for some more episodes to see what that is.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, we every week we do this Grants and Contracting podcast. Today we have some really cool stuff to share with
Mhm.
you. So if you're just joining us, let us know where you're joining us from, whether you're joining us from the States or from international place. We do this here. We have people from all over the place that joins us. So let us know the name of your organization and where you're joining us from. Stay to the end. We have some cool bonuses, some surprise bonus to share with everybody, some templates and some awesome stuff. So with that, Lainey, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about our conversation today. It kind of goes a little bit into my background. So I worked in politics for a while, was on campaign trails and stuff like that. And so, as we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. Everyone is aware of it. There's been some major changes in our administration. Funding's been cut. A lot of nonprofits are hurting, and a lot of companies that are going after contracts, they're just now opening back up those contracts. So when me and Abe were kind of talking, I said, let's do something on contacting your representative because, you know, I feel like a lot of people forget that in America, we're represented by so many people because not everybody can be at the White House telling what's going on, but you have your representatives to help you out with issues. And it's not just for individual issues, it's business issues, nonprofit issues, and that's their job. They are literally paid to listen to you and then take it back to wherever they're going to. If it's Congress, if it's the House, if it's your state house. And so that's something I've talked to a couple of my nonprofit clients about is, hey, it's not good that we're losing money. Some funding has been cut, but let's make sure that they hear us. We're not going to stay silent. Let's make sure they hear us and understand that these changes happening at a state level, at the federal level, they they cause real problems for people doing real things. They're not just in the news, they're not just on paper. They affect real people and they affect real organizations that are doing amazing things.
Mhm.
So I brought it up to Abe and I said, let's just talk about, your local representative, how to get in contact with them and why you should get in contact with them. Because I would say, and I want to see our people that have on, comment if you've wrote to your local representative. So I have wrote to my local representative. I also worked for one of my representatives, so that kind of makes it a little bit different. Abe, have you ever have you ever kind of gotten involved with your
Yeah,
representative?
yeah, we have leveraged our local congressman and I love to share some of these stories as we dive deeper into it in terms of
Yeah.
who we've reached out to personally, what we've done, some of our members that have reached out to our contracting or our congressmen and state legislators and so forth, how to get involved in that process. So that's part of what today's topic is about: is leveraging the elected officials to help you unlock grants and contract opportunities. And we're going to dive into some specific examples of how some of our members have done that, how we have done that to create a better brand. But let me get one thing out of the way as we're going into this here. All this is very important for you as a nonprofit or as a for-profit organization, is leveraging the representative that is there, that you elected, or whether you voted or not, they're there for you.
Hmm.
But I want to talk about politics for a quick second. We don't like talking about politics, but I do want to talk about politics. From my perspective, and really from your perspective as part of our audience, part of our community, the key thing about politics is this here: politicians will be politicians. You, as a nonprofit organization, you, as a for profit organization, the only thing that matters to you is this here: we don't think red, we don't think blue. Red, blue, all the political spectrum, all the political color spectrums out there. It's not whether you're a Democrat or Republican or liberal or anything in any other spectrum. What this podcast is about and how you as an organization should think is green. That's it.
Money.
Think about money. How do you access more funding resources? How do you access more contracting opportunities for your organization, leveraging the elected officials, whether you put them in there, whether you vote for them or not, we don't care, right? All we care is how do we help you and how do you help yourself to leverage these elected officials to help benefit your organization. So that's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, and I want to give a little secret. They don't know if you voted for them or not unless you tell them. So that's the thing, is that they're there to represent you, whether if you wanted someone else in or not, and completely just taking politics out of it. I personally think that we have a great way that this is set up. We elect people that we feel fit our needs, know what's going on in our community, and we send them to represent us on our behalf. So that's why it's so important that they know what's going on. They know if your nonprofit is not having funding or having funding, what's happening in the court system. It's important for them to be in the know, and they want to be in the know. So they want to know what's going on. For example, your congressman. So in their district, they want to know what's going on. They want to know the people because that's their job.
Okay. So with that said, so we're going to be talking about how to identify your elected officials so that you can connect with them, get them to be an advocate for you, what to say when you reach out to them, a step-by-step guide on how to contact them, what are the websites, what are the resources of how to research for them and find them. We're talking some real examples that we have gone through as an organization. Some of our members have gone through, how that's turned out to be very positive. One example, we're going to talk about how a small business that was trying to get their small business certification, specifically their 8A certification, and how it got lost in the process, and how they were able to leverage their elected officials, the steps of what to do with that there. And then tips on, showing your nonprofits value to your elected officials so that you can get their voice to be your voice, or your voice to be part of their voice, so that you can get more funding resources, and also how to just to actively choose how to participate in some of this process, being your own advocate to your elected officials, leveraging all these resources so you can get the funding and the contracts that you're pursuing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And before we dive into it, I'm trying to think. I think that this next year, and wherever you're at, your congressmen and all your local officials, normally they're on off years of president's years. But I think that's important, and that's something I want to explain, of getting involved in the campaign trail. I'm not saying you have to go put out signs, but they're going to be speaking a lot, and I think that's should be coming either this year or next year. So kind of keep an eye out for your local representatives. They'll be having events. They'll be, at public places. That's a great way to get to meet them, but also kind of hear what's going on. You want to know what's going on in your community. But before I teach you how to find any of your representatives, I just wanted to do a high level of what representatives you have. So starting at your federal level, you're going to have your U.S. Senator and your U.S. House of Representative. So your congressman and then your senator. Um, those These are the people that are for your national laws, federal taxes, anything that's big level. They're not worried about, you know a road that has a pothole in your local community. They're big level things. So if you hear something that's going on, especially with the administration, that kind of stuff, that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with federal issues that also affect state. And then you're going to have your state representatives, which is your state senator and your state assembly slash house members. Those are going to be state issues. So, state laws, school, roads, any programs that are statewide. So, still, they're on a bigger level. So, they're not going to be able to help on that smaller level, but there's a lot of things that affect your day to day life that is a state issue. And then you're going to get down to your local elected officials. This can be your county commissioners, your school board, if you have a city council member, your mayor, that kind of stuff. And they're going to be focused on zoning, the budgets. That it could be a school board budget, or it could be, your city budgets for roads, your local parks, and your neighborhood issues. A lot of times, tax issues come up with local as well. So that's kind of a high overview. I don't know if Abe, you have anything else to add. It can get confusing, but we're going to show you that it's not that bad.
Yeah, depending on your specific needs, right? So if you are a organization that is going after grants from the federal government or going after contracts from the federal government, then you definitely need to address it from that perspective. There's a lot of policy changes going on in the federal market right now in the with federal policies, with the federal acquisition regulation. They're reducing the regulation, so that can impact your business. So just depending on your specific pain points or your specific the challenges that you're having, leverage the different tiers, the different levels that Lainey addressed here.
Yeah, and I just heard a story from an ED that I'm close with, and I hadn't heard this before, but she was talking to me about how um she tries to meet with her representatives maybe, once a year. She's not meeting with them every month, but to tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. Is there any new funding that maybe you know about, I don't know about? And she meets with kind of a variety. So she'll meet with her congressman for federal, she'll meet with her state representative, and she'll meet with her local, just to make sure she's in the know, because they could have heard about a funding or something that's coming down the pipeline that we don't know about yet. And it also doesn't hurt to have them on their side, because maybe they can give a good word to somebody or something like that. So she, about once a year, she told me that she meets with them, and she's had some great success with getting some grants, getting some additional funding that she wouldn't have had if she didn't have that relationship. So
Absolutely, yeah. I think definitely. Uh, Sometimes we don't leverage them, and we think they're not accessible. But all of
mhm,
our elected officials are usually accessible. Especially when they're not in session. During session, they might be a little bit busy, but
yeah.
outside of their specific sessions, they're always available. Or if they're not available, they have deputies or they have staff members that will be available for you to meet with them and then get your message to the right person. And let me kind of share a very specific example. Uh, Back in 2010, the state of Georgia was passing a English only driver's license bill. And what that means is that because we're in the United States, this is at the state level issue. The state of Georgia, there was a bill that said if you're going to take the driver's license test, you have to be able to pass it in English itself. Now, as a immigrant, a refugee escaping the atrocities of a communist regime coming to the United States, learning English, that makes total sense, right? From a high level perspective, that makes total sense. But from a practical perspective, for example, my parents, they
Mhm.
have limited English proficiency. They came to the United States through a legal documented process. And if they have to pass the driver's license test in English only, then they wouldn't be able to get the driver's license. So I went to our governor. The governor was not available. So we met with the governor's staff and I shared my story with them. I said, hey, I understand the intent of this bill here, which is to protect the workers, the documented workers that's here in the United States, which is to prevent or to create more of a legal process for uh, individuals who's trying to come and work in the state of Georgia. I understand the all the different intent behind it, but there's unintended consequences in this
Yeah.
situation. And I share that if my parents were not able to get their driver's license, that means they would have to either take a bus in the state of Georgia. Bus is horrible. There is no mass transportation. Trains are
Yeah.
horrible.
We
That
do
means
not
they
have
would,
public
yeah,
transportation.
not in Georgia. And I said, in that situation, we would have to, my parents would have to be on welfare. And that
Mhm.
hurts the economy. That hurts my parents. That hurts, the community as a whole. So we were able to meet with designated staff members just so that we can get our stories heard, and ultimately that bill never passed because our voices were heard and they didn't make any sense. So whether it's a policy or whether it's advocating for your business, your organization, you can get a meeting with them, and Lainey's going to share with
Mhm.
us uh, how to find your elected officials and how to get that meeting. And we got other stories to share with you, real examples of how companies and organizations have leveraged our elected officials to help them get the funding that they need.
Yeah, and I love that story because I am a huge advocate of, a lot of people they want to get on Facebook or, sit at the dinner table and complain about stuff and act like it's out of their control. It's not out of your control. Just like your story, you went, explained what the real consequences were going to be because I think a lot of times in government and bureaucracy, stuff looks really good on paper, but then when it's applied in the real world, it's a completely different plan than what was originally thought. So that's something that, I love that story. I'm going to share with y'all. This is a new website to me, actually, when I was trying to figure out I wanted to best show you how to find your representative. So when I've had to find my representative, I would just Google, find my representative, and then you'd have to go to the House website and you'd have to go to the Congress website and all these different things. And this, like I said, it's new to me. I don't know how old it is a really cool website. So it's called commoncause.org. And this is, you just type in your address. So, Abe, give me the address for GCA.
1954 Airport Road,
Right there.
Chamblee.
It was
Yep.
the first one. So, you just type in your address and it is going to come up with every single one of your representatives. So, yes, Trump and Vance are a representative. They're the president and the vice president, but you can go by different things. So, say you were looking for, you really need help with one of your parks or something, you're going to go to that local. So, this is, your county executive head, county legislator, that's your sheriff, solicitor, these kind of things. And these are people you vote for. So I think it's important. And I want to explain that. Like I said, my background is on the campaign trail. And I think it's so interesting when people go in to vote and sometimes they don't know who they're voting for. They just vote for who's been in office. And when I was the same way. So I would vote, it has an I next to their name. They must be doing good. I haven't heard anything bad. And I would vote. And after one election, I told myself I'm never going to do that again. I will be very informed on who I want to vote for, making sure that they align with what I align with, that I want to vote for them and I'm not just kind of throwing a vote out there. And some elections are harder than others because some have like 30 people on the ballot, but trying to just be an informed voter. So these are all people that you're going to be voting for. Let's go to our state.
Well,
So,
as you're talking about the local level, let me share a quick local example. So, one of the companies I'm coaching, and we're helping him to go get some government contracts. Part of it is to get his small business certification. So, the city, because he's in the same office I'm in Chamblee, the city, it took him about almost a year to get his
hmm,
business license, and there were just some crazy hold up. And so I said, well, I can't help you get certified as a small business until we get your business license, because they're asking for your business license. If you don't have a business license, you can't get your small business certification. So he said, well, what should I do? I said, we just need to reach out to the mayor, because Chamblee is a small city. It's a little bit north of Metro Atlanta and downtown Atlanta. It's about 20 minutes north of downtown Atlanta. And I said, let's reach out to the mayor. So we reached out to the mayor, and the mayor's office said, okay, we're on it. Boom. It was taken care of. So, so something as simple as that, right? It took the the process is broken at the grassroots level, but when you reach the mayor's office and you say, hey, I'm a citizen in your city and I can't get my business license. What's going on? The
Yeah.
mayor and their staff, boom, done. So yes, you leverage your local elected officials to help you, regardless if it's a small pacification or anything else.
Well, and I'll tell you a story. For me, it's not necessarily business, but we live on the lake, so we live on Lake Lanier. And if anybody is familiar with Lake Lanier, it's owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. So there are very strict rules for like specifically if you don't already have a dock. I think it's like a 10-year waiting list to get a dock for your house. So, it's a big deal. You can't cut trees around the lake. There's just a lot of laws. Well, we were having an issue. So we had moved to our house. And we had put in all the paperwork to get the dock in our name because it was in the previous owner's name, and we could not get any feedback from anybody. So we did go to our local officials, and we just kind of asked around. I mean, we actually go to church with one of our county officials. So we just said, hey, do you have any contacts with the Army Corps of Engineer? Because yes, they are federal, but maybe, there's something that can be done there. And we actually met someone that did have a contact, and they were able to push that up the line, which I've heard people wait for 5 years to just get a doc put in their name because they need a little extra push to get it done. So it can be, small things. I'm going to move on to our state. So you have your governor. You have the governor's office. So like Abe said, you can directly call the governor's office. You can go to their website. Your lieutenant governor, your secretary of state. When we get down here, I wanted to show, it should have your so your state senators. These are people that, and Chamblee, probably has multiple state senators because the state Senate, their districts are really small compared to like your congressmen where they have large ones. So get to know your state representatives and your state senators because, like Abe said, they're not always in session. So a lot of times they're around. The good thing is, like Abe, where you live, they're only 20 minutes from the Capitol. So that, it's not a hard thing to do. But yeah, kind of just getting to know those, getting to know your judges. And I know a lot of nonprofits, they are very connected in the court system and the judge system because they are working with maybe the Department of Justice, or they have to work with the court system because maybe it's children that are in the court system or stuff like that. So they are very familiar with their judges and they want to keep them on their side and just helping their organization. And then when we go to federal, you're going to have your U.S. Senator and your representative. So your representative, Abe, is Hank Johnson Jr.
Yep.
Have you met him ever?
I sure have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Have you met John Ossoff?
Well, let me tell you a story about how we met John Ossoff and his team.
Okay.
So back when GCA, we were doing a grand opening. We had this is before COVID, so we moved from one small location to a about 7,500 square foot new office space. We had a big training center, co-working space, 4 or 5 conference rooms, lots of little offices. It's in a hub zone, and businesses can come and work out of there, set up their office, operate out of there. So we had this little hub for government contractors, and we were doing this grand opening. So we reached out to DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce to come and do the ribbon cutting. We reached out to John Ossoff. At that time, he was not a senator yet. He was running for office. And then we
Yeah.
also reached out to his competitor, Karen Handel, who they were competing to get this senator's office here. And so we reached out to both parties. They both came to a grand opening because we're a organization inside of their district And so we said, hey, we're
Mhm.
doing a grand opening. We just want to see if you guys can come to this grand opening. So they came to a grand opening. We gave them time to share about their message, why, uh, what their agendas are to help small businesses. Because as the Government Contractor Association, we help small businesses. So they came, um, they spoke at the event, and so it was very positive in terms of, because as the association, we're, we don't lean politics, right? We, again, I told you, well, it's not about red or blue. We talk about green, how to get more funding for your company, for your nonprofit. So that's all we talk about. And so they came, they gave their message about how they support small businesses. So yeah, it was good. We leverage our officials to come and celebrate our wins, right? We don't just reach out to them when we have issues. We reach out to them and share in our joy, in our victories, in our, success as well.
Yeah, and I have to ask, so when you reached out to John and Karen, did you tell them that you had reached out to the other one?
We did, yeah. We
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Normally, if you say that, they'll both show up if they think the other
yes.
person's
We
gonna be
actually
there.
said, yeah, we asked for your the other candidate to come to our event, and they said, okay, yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah, that's funny. Um, Yeah, that's one of my so another thing Abe was talking about is the office staff. So you'll have each of these will have like a chief of staff. When you get to like your senator and your congressman, those are very good contacts to have. So as somebody that worked in a congressman's office, the congressman can only do so much. You know, he has a lot of gatekeepers around him, but normally your chief of staff or your staff for that, they are just as good listeners and helpers as the congressman himself. So don't I feel like sometimes people write that off, or if you ask for somebody to come, the chief of staff comes. Well, they're probably the person getting the work done. So the congressman, he has to be in DC, and like he's still making decisions, but his chief of staff keeps his schedule, keeps what he's doing, and so that's a good person to have. Even I don't work with my congressman anymore. He's not even in office, but the chief of staff is always someone. Anytime I see him, hey, how are you? Like, want to have a conversation with him because he's the gatekeeper at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And to piggyback on that, when we invited John Ossoff and Karen Handel, John Ossoff actually apologized. He said, I can't come. I'm sending my chief of staff to represent me. And then
mhm.
Karen Handel, she actually came herself. And so we did have the chief of staff with John Ossoff come and represented John Ossoff. So yeah, and I agree with you that sometimes the chief of staff actually has more, can do more for you, because the elected official is the face, but the
Mhm.
operational person is the chief of staff, and so that person will actually have more information and more knowledge of what's all the behind the scenes stuff. So
Yeah, completely agree. And I wanted to point this out. So, a lot of your federal people, they will have a DC line and then they will have a state line. I have always just went through my state line just because most of the time the what I was needing, I didn't need a DC level. You know, I needed to talk to this to state office. That's the people that are helping you. A big thing too is that your representative, specifically your congressman, helps with is like VA. So I know that was we actually had a person in the office that all they dealt with was veteran affairs, because that if anybody has had to deal with the VA, you know that it is a whole thing. There's lines and lines and lines and lines, and so that was actually really cool. I got to go to a VA conference we were having at the VA in Atlanta because it they have to change. You know, that was what we were talking about, is that you can't keep doing what you're doing. You're not serving the people. And so that was really cool to kind of get that perspective on the VA side. But yeah, this is a really cool. I'm going to put this in the chat so you can see it. It's just commoncause.org, and it's an easy way to find your representatives instead of having to go to the House and to the Congress and to the state and everything else.
yeah, let me as you're doing that, let me share a very practical way of how you get your local and state representatives to really help you get funding. Uh, this is a super important technique. Uh, I'll share, and Elena, you have some examples too of this here. But we were doing a big event, and we wanted to attract important people to come to our event. Now, obviously, the mayor, the elected officials, they can't always come to events that we put on and so forth. So we were using that event as a fundraiser also for our association. So people come, they're going. We had a auction. We were doing it as a semi fundraiser event, but also just training to help businesses in the community. And so we created a pamphlet, and we reached out to our state officials, our local officials, and we asked them to write a letter to support our event. And so they wrote a letter. We put that letter into the pamphlet itself. The booklet that we produced, the booklet was given to all the attendees. And so, they liked that because we're helping them market their brand as elected officials to the community that they're out that they support, right? And so, but what that does is it's called social proof. So
Mhm.
when a elected official believes in your cause, other people will believe in your cause. If
Yeah.
someone important believes in your cause, other people will believe in your cause. When someone of influence believes in your cause, average people will tend to believe in your cause as well. So that's how we were able to leverage some of our elected officials to do a fundraiser, a big event that we were putting on.
Yeah, and it was almost like you read my mind because the next thing I wanted to talk about was that you can ask any of your representatives for a letter. Maybe you're doing a new project if you're on the business side or nonprofit side. I did a big grant at the end of last year, and the grant actually asked for community support letters. So we had it was mostly our local officials, our school system, that kind of stuff. They're on board with us, so they had wrote letters and were able to put that in the grant, and that kind of put us above the rest because knowing that your community supports you and your officials support you will it makes you more real, a better, more legitimize organization versus if you just say, oh, I'm doing this, we don't have any partnerships, we don't have any support, that doesn't look as good as having those letters.
Absolutely. So leverage them for those letters.
Hmm. So speaking of letters, kind of when we get closer to the end, we actually have a freebie we want to give out, and I've created a template for you writing to your representatives. So you do not just have to write anymore, so you don't have to send letters. A lot of times on their websites, they're going to have like a contact page, or you can send them an email. It'll have an email to send to somebody. So you don't have to write letters. I like to write letters, but you don't have to do that. And somebody, I will say this from being on the inside, somebody Ev- every single letter that comes in is opened. So don't think that if you're writing same thing with emails, that's people's jobs is to read letters, put it in a stack. Okay, this person doesn't like this bill, because normally a lot of times the representatives or the constituents are reaching out about things that are the same things. We don't really normally have one-off things.
Yeah. And so the template, you want to share, you want to wait till the end to share that template with everybody? Or you want to talk about it now and then make the template available to everybody at the end?
We can talk about it now.
Sure. Let's do that. And if you're just joining us, whether you're watching this on replay or you're just joining us here on the Grants and Contracting podcast, it's good to have you. Some of you guys have made some comments. I see Sachet, I see Adreno, and I see a few other people joining us live. So thank you for joining us live here. Lewis, thank you for joining us live. And then for those of you who are watching this on replay, don't forget to like and subscribe. We do this here every single week on live, and then we also record it for replay purposes. For some of you who can't join us live and you're watching this on replay, thank you for just being part of our community, and we love hanging out with you.
So I am actually what I'm going to share right now is our GovCon community. So if you haven't heard, we have a community, and it has some really cool things. We have our teaming co-op. You're able to ask the community. We have community guides, but what I'm in right now is our free resources. So when you become a community member, we have all these resources and we're constantly adding new ones. But um, this is the template. How you're going to get the template, I'll send you this link. And I've included 2 letters in there, which is the grievance one, which is where we're telling them, this is the bad stuff that's happening, please change. But then also I included the event invitation letter because they want to be involved, they want to have fun. They don't always want to be hearing the bad and the ugly. So just 2 different letters of different things. And in the event invitation letter, I would include, if it's an email or whatever, the actual invitation. So yes, you're kind of explaining what it is in this letter, but if it's a gala, include the exact, include the invitation for them, invite them. And then I'll say this too, when we were, one organization I worked with, so I live in Gainesville, Georgia. I don't know if anybody else is from there, but so I'm about an hour north of Atlanta, and our representatives are actually on our square. So our square is kind of like downtown Gainesville. And one of the organizations I work with for grants is like a 3-minute walk to the representative's office. So if we have something to say to them, we normally just walk it over. And so they see our face coming, because you can just go into your congressman's office. You might have to wait, or they might say, that person's not here today, but you can just visit them. So we would just drop off our letters instead of letting them get dropped in the mail. We were in-person couriers because we knew that was going to get there faster, but at least we gave it to someone. We put it in someone's hand instead of seeing if it got lost in the mail.
Yeah, and talk about a event invitation as you're pulling up the template sample here. One of the small business owners I was working with, when I first started working with her, and she was working from her home office, help her to win some contracts. So I coached her, and so we started going after some contracts. She won multiple contracts, and she was ready to get a real office space. And so she did a invitation letter to her federal congressman and say, hey, you know what? I'm in your district, doing a grand opening, and love for you to come and share, a few words to, to our staff and to the community. And so her elected congressman came and partake in her grand opening of her small business.
Yeah, which is really cool. And it's also really cool to have photos with them and, post that. And it
Mhm,
kind of, once
mhm.
again, it's legitimizing your company, your organization, that these people support you. Um,
Social
and
proof is so important.
yeah, and it is public knowledge of when they're going to be in session. So that's also a good idea. If you're wanting your officials to be there, plan it when they're not in session. They have a better, that's when their schedule is going to be open. That's when they're going to events. That's when they're doing things. So they'll be home.
All right, can you zoom in a little bit on this sample here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even bigger, so that because for
Yeah.
those watching on replay, it'll be hard for them to see on YouTube. So perfect.
Yes. So you're just going to fill in all this information, and you're getting this information from the website that had put the common calls. And we're wanting to be professional. We're wanting to be very nice. So I'll say this too, just from my experience. Yelling and screaming and causing a fit is not going to get you anywhere. It's honestly going to kind of make your name be flagged that we don't want to help you and we don't want to talk to you. Just because, nobody wants to be treated that way. So I always say go in very professional and just explain what's going on. You can have a grievance without being so upset about it. It is upsetting, but you can put your words in, and that's why sometimes instead of calling, a letter is easier because you're able to keep some emotions at bay when you're talking about something. But you're just writing on behalf of your organization and explaining, describe the issue. And I think it's also good here, when you're putting a brief description of your organization or your business, talk about how many people you've served. So in the nonprofit world, if you've served 1,000 kids this week or whatever it is, you want to put that so that they know that you're doing real work. The same with your business. Maybe your business is a multi-million dollar business, or you've been able to, maybe you're doing road work for the state of Gaines or state of Georgia, and you're able to put that in there, kind of just getting their eye. And then at the end of it, I said we would welcome the opportunity to meet with you or your staff to discuss how this issue affects our operations. So, asking for that meeting after you've done that and putting all your contact information. And then what I would encourage too, once you send this, if you're mailing it, I would wait probably 2 weeks just to make sure it gets there. But then following up with a email or following up with a phone call, because they have a lot of things that are going on. And if you're able to follow up and say, hey, I sent a letter, just was wondering, if there was any questions or I could talk to somebody about it, normally you can get a response that way.
Patience, and keeping it professional. We always say honey will catch more flies than a fly swatter. So
Yeah.
using in marketing, I call it the carrot technique. You can get a horse to move by kicking it, hitting it, mushing the reins, or if you put a carrot in front of the horse, it will
Yeah.
automatically come to you. So always find a reason, a positive reason of why someone should engage you. What's in it for them. Even though these are elected officials, you still have to give them a reason why this is important to you and why they should meet with you. So think of it as a marketing document. You reach out to them,
Hmm.
but you want them to advocate for you. You want them to do something to support your cause. You have to give them a reason.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. One of the last things I wanted to talk about before we wrap up is certifications. So you talked about it a little bit, but when you're getting your WOSB or something like that, at one point we were seeing it take like 6 months to a year. I don't think mine took that long, but I was having, when I was applying for mine, um, they kept giving me dates and the date would pass and then nothing had happened. So finally, I reached out since I was doing WSB, which is a federal. I reached out to my congressman and just explained the situation, explained what was going on. I've been working with the SBA. They keep failing to meet deadlines. Is there anything you can do to help? And they asked for all this information. They replied back and said, fill out this form. I filled out the form. And I think within maybe a couple of weeks, I had it. It was not instant, but they said, hey, we're going to make sure they push your application. I followed back up. Hey, have you heard from the SBA? Did they push my application? And then it ended up getting through. And I don't think it would have got through if I wouldn't have had that extra push from that congressman's office.
Yeah, your certification, for those of you who are small business owners, uh, definitely leverage your federal elected officials, congressmen, and senators to help you. Practically, the process is this here. You gather all the documents from the checklist that they're asking you, your financial statements, your business license, all of these different documents that you prepare. And then once you prepare it, most of the time it's a portal. So you go to the certification.sba.gov or the different other portals out there. You submit all your documents and then silence. And then you go into this holding, no communication. The portal might say, okay, we're reviewing it. Different things might happen. There might be some little communication inside the portal, but nothing happens, right? Because ultimately, how many emails you get back, how many communication you get back doesn't really matter, because your goal is to get your certificate of small business approved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so the process says that from the moment you submit is 90 days, you will get an approval or a denial letter.
Mm-hmm.
But most systems don't treat your package as complete until they deem that all the documents have been gathered. So
Mm-hmm.
even though you submitted today, the 90 days does not start ticking until somebody actually says, okay, this package is complete. So if you don't get the word that your package is complete, the 90 days doesn't even start. So how do you accelerate this process? Well, you submit your package. If you don't hear anything, no communication or anything like that, it doesn't happen within the first 3 or 4 weeks, then you need to go to the portal. You have to use the portal because that's
Mhm.
how they prefer to communicate. So you communicate through the portal saying that you want to um, you haven't heard anything about what's going on. Can you get them to update where your status is and so forth? So sometimes you, if you don't hear anything, you do communicate again, but then you don't automatically go to your congressman, don't automatically go to your
Yeah.
senator. You do a small protocol. The next step is you reach out to your SBA director.
Mhm.
Every federal office has some type of governing body. So in the certification process, you go to your SBA director. If you don't hear anything back from them, then you reach out to your congressman, because when you reach out to your congressman, you just say, "Hey, I haven't heard anything." That doesn't help them to advocate for you. You have to say, I communicate through the portal. I've sent out
Yeah.
6 emails or 5 emails. I've reached out to my elected official. I mean, I've reached out to my SBA director. I reached out to my SBA representative. Still nothing. Now I'm reaching out to you to see if we can do something and speed up the process. There was a lady that was helping. She submitted her application. Uh, Almost a year went by, and the SBA
Wow.
said, "Oh, your package is complete," but nothing happened. And so finally, we actually reach out to to the congressman, and they finally resolved it for us. So I know,
Yeah,
Lane. Uh-huh.
you want them to be your last kind of resort. You want to make sure that they know that you're not just coming to them first just because you want to jump in line. And like I said, with what I've seen and what you've seen, Abe, they're normally very helpful when you say, "Look, my 90 days has passed. I got it completed. I've talked to whoever at this office. I've talked to whoever at this office, and we just can't move something along. Can you help?" And that's when they come in.
Absolutely. So with that said, I know, Lainey, you need to jump off here, but I'm going to wrap up our podcast here and share a
Okay.
few awesome things for everybody.
Yeah,
So
and
if you're,
I'm going.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Before I jump off, I've got to head somewhere. I'm going to actually be posting that template letter um, in our community. And I think what Abe is going to be doing is sharing a little coupon for our community. So you will have to wait around for that. But thank y'all so much. It was great being with y'all today. And we will see y'all next, or I will see you next week.
All right, Lainey, take care of your business. And for all of you joining us, got a few things to close out our podcast here today. As you're hanging out with us, we've been talking about how to leverage your elected officials to help you with your organization to get more funding, more contract opportunities. We've covered small business certifications. We've covered just celebrating your wins with your elected officials. With that, I want to talk about what we're going to be covering next week. So next week, does everybody know what time we are, what where we are in the life cycle of the funding or the contracting world? Leave your comment if you know exactly what we're doing, what time of the year this is. Well, at the state level, we are in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is June. It ends in June for most states. And then for most local agency as well, it's June is the end of the fiscal year. But for the federal government, we're about to go into the fourth quarter, which starts July 1st. With that said, we're going to be talking about next week in our podcast. We're going to be talking about marketing campaigns to help you win sole source contracts. So we're going to talk about what type of marketing tools you need. We're going to be talking about some examples of emails that you can actually use, how to build a list of contracting officers, your marketing tools, the different portals, the different softwares that you can use, how to create an automated email so that you just load everything up and it will automatically send out emails for you, creating what we call a cadence. Day 1, day 3, day 6, creating that type of campaign for your organization. So we're going to be talking about how to market to contracting officers, to agencies, so that you can get sole source contracts. Why? because it's the fourth quarter and they have to award billions and billions and billions of dollars of contracts. For the last 5 months, they have not been awarding contracts. They've been cutting, cutting, cutting. Doge have been at work. They've been talking about how do we cut some of these program costs? How do we lay off federal employees? How do we cut contractors, save money? All that is we are towards the end, right? Last week, Elon Musk officially left Doge. We're starting to go into a normalization period. There's a lot of pressure for contracting officers to award contracts, whether it's grants that needs to be put out or whether it's contracts that needs to be put out. There's a lot of pressure for them to spend their budget by the end of September 30th. And so we're going to be talking about marketing campaigns to contracting officers and how to get sole source contracts next week. So come back and join us for that there. And to kind of wrap things off, I want to talk about a awesome bonus that we're doing. For those of you that are joining us, we are, let me put the registration link for our next week. I'm gonna put that in the comments area here. So that's the registration link for our next week's episode. But I want to talk about our bonus. What we're doing is we're going to be giving everybody a 14-day. If you're not a GCA community member yet, we're going to give you a special bonus to become a member of the community. When you're a member of the community, you're also a member of the association. So they're really hand to hand. So I'm going to put in here a special deal for those of you who are not members. You can become an association member. You can become a part of the community. Inside the community, there's a lot of different things that happens inside the community. I'm going to actually come in here and share with you a little bit about the community itself. So let me share my screen so that you can see what the community is all about. So let me come in here. Lainey gave you a sneak peek earlier. So I'm going to come in here and give you a better perspective of what's inside the community. For the free resources that we talked about, this down here, right? You come in here, it says free resources. You click on that. There's all the free bonuses that we give out, and there's a lot of other stuff. You can come in here and look at industry events. We aggregate everything tied to government contracting and some grants events that's happening, pretty much almost every single day, something's happening. So we put all of those events in one place. So, it's not just our events, right? We have events too, but we aggregate events that's happening in the world of government contracting and grants, and we put it all in one place. So like there's a acquisition conference that's coming up. There's all these different things that's happening. So you can come in here and view all these different events. You can come in here and we put news, all the different things that's happening in the world of government contracting and grants world. We put it all in here. So we aggregate, so you don't have to go and search the general internet of what's happening in the government contracting world, because we've already sifted through all of the things that's relevant to businesses and nonprofits that's in the government contracting funding space here. So all of these things here are in here. And then if you like something, just click on this here and we summarize what this article or what this news topic is about. And then if you want to read more, then you can actually click on read the article more, and it will take you to the actual article itself. So that's really the, as a resource to the community. We put all these things in here. We have different things that's happening. In another 30 minutes, we're going to have our inner circle. So we have our events. And so, we have events that's happening. Inner circle is an event for executives or leaders inside an organization to where leaders come to help each other. So you can talk about your HR problems. You can come talk about your proposal problems. You can come and talk about whatever problems you have And in the inner circle, uh, businesses come to help each other. Now, I'm there as a facilitator, and so I'm also there to help you with thoughts. So, by being a member, some of these here are available to you as a member, and and some of them we do have guests, right? If you are not a member, you have, as a guest, you have access to some things, but as a member, you have access to pretty much everything in here. So leverage this here. I'm gonna put the link into the chat in terms of how you can become a GCA member for $1. That's it, $1. It gives you full access to pretty much everything we do for 14 days. If at the end of 14 days you're like, hey, you know what, this is not for me, then no worries, just cancel your membership. So with that, I want to open up for any questions or comments about anything that we've covered today, to see what if you have any questions. If you're watching this a replay, just leave comments. We check pretty much every single comment. So if you have a questions, or if you have a suggestions of what you want to learn for future podcasts, put in the comments area. Or if you have questions today, for those of you who's joining me live today, put your comments in the chat, or your questions in the comments area, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions with anybody at this time here. So with that, let me stop screen sharing, and I will see if there's any questions about anything that anybody have related to the topic today, or anything else. Again, we're here as a resource to you. So any questions? We got a few minutes left, so I want to see if there's any specific questions that anybody have, and we will wrap up today's episode. So I don't see any questions coming in. So with this here, let me share a few final closing comments. As an association, we come and hang out with you in this podcast on a consistent weekly basis. How you can give back to us is by leaving some comments, sharing what we do, and exploring to become a member of the community, so that we can continue to grow the community. Lots of resources there to help you. Until next time, remember, you are one grant and one contract away from all your goals. If you need new staff, you're one grant away. If you need a better office space, you're one contract away. So keep going. You will succeed. I promise you, you will get the contracts that you want. You will get the grants that you want. The only people that don't win grants or contracts are those that quit along the way. So that's my encouragement to you. I will see you another episode. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.